disease, what a shagrir. This is Sugihara, whose family name will always, forever be among the heroes of the Jewish people and all humanity. We're grateful for her presence here today on behalf of her family, and especially the young people gathered in this hall, including the magnificent choir and the wonderful Hashivenu they sang. Approximately 15 years ago, I accompanied a group of Buddhist leaders from Asia to the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp, where, as you know, in a few hours, world leaders will gather with the few remaining survivors to reflect on the 70th anniversary. It was a very unique day to be at Auschwitz-Birkenau because the Buddhist leaders who were with us wanted to actually have a special service, a Buddhist service, to memorialize the 1.1 million people who were systematically murdered there, most of them Jews. And they walked on the famous, infamous railroad line. And I noticed in the distance someone in deep prayer and contemplation, and I recognized the gentleman to be Shevach Weiss, who at that time was Israel's ambassador to Poland. He went on to become the Speaker of Israel's parliament. But his first interaction with Auschwitz-Birkenau was as a victim, as a kid. So he was back that day to say Kaddish, the memorial prayer, the Jewish prayer, for his family that did not emerge alive from Auschwitz-Birkenau. I walked over to him, stood by his side, when he looked up, and he saw the group that was in the midst of their ceremony. He asked, "Who are these people and why are they here?" When I explained that this was a group that had decided in the millennium year to go to different places around the globe to pray for innocent victims, Shevach Weiss asked tearfully, "May I address the group when they're finished with their ceremony?" And he said to them, "This is a house of horrors, Auschwitz-Birkenau, the most unspeakable crimes. But of all of the pain that was inflicted on us Jews, the worst pain of all was to know that when we got off of those cattle cars, already more dead than alive, we were utterly abandoned and utterly alone. Your presence here today, coming from a continent that was not involved with the Shoah, members of a spiritual family had no connection to these events, your act of solidarity is an act of healing for me. I've had the honor of working alongside a great man named Simon Wiesenthal, after whom our institution is named. Mr. Wiesenthal was born in Europe, got his degree in architecture, married his childhood sweetheart, and by the time he was saved by the American Army in May of 1945 at the Mauthausen concentration camp, he weighed about 40 kilos, he was too weak to stand, and between he and his wife, they lost 89 members of their family. Unlike other victims of genocide, Simon Wiesenthal never went home. He became, if you will, the unofficial ambassador of 6 million ghosts. His entire life, until he died at the age of 96 in Vienna, was devoted to the pursuit of justice and not vengeance. I asked him towards the end of his life, "Simon, what was maybe the one point that most shocked you about the terrible events that unfolded and destroyed almost everyone you loved? And he said, I wasn't surprised about how many Nazis there were in the world, but I was devastated to see how few anti-Nazis there were in the world. And I think that summarizes the challenge before all of us of choosing which path we want to take with our lives, especially the young people here who have so many important decisions still ahead, with their whole lives still ahead of them. The French novelist François Mauriac wrote 70 years ago, "We who live beneath a sky still streaked with the smoke of crematoriums have paid a high price to find out that evil is really evil," unquote. That however unbelievable in the 21st century, worldwide Hitlership continues to gather momentum. The latest ominous example took place not a week ago in Cambodia. There, a general by the name of Sao Soka told an annual meeting of Phnom Penh's military police that he learned how to maintain social order by studying the tactics of Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler, and that he draws inspiration from the rise of Germany under that leader's authoritarian rule in the 1930s. This in a country that suffered its own horrific genocide a generation ago. There are many others seeking to forget the ultimate evil that was found in Hitler and Nazism. A new study just released by the Bertelsmann Foundation called Connecting Past, Separating Future found that 81% of Germans say they want to put, quote, the history of the persecution of the Jews behind them, and for the leaders to turn to contemporary problems. The study's release coincides with rising levels of support for neo-Nazi parties and anti-minority movements in the German heartland. Across Europe, the place of this horrific crime, as many as a third of the young people have doubts that the Nazi Holocaust even occurred. The Paris attacks, referred to by our distinguished speaker, and the preparations for this International Holocaust Memorial Day coincided with the arrival in Rotterdam of the Pieter Schelti, an oil tanker reportedly to be the world's largest ship. It is named not in memory of Anne Frank, but after a Dutchman who volunteered to serve in the Nazis' Waffen-SS. Despite protests, the Royal Dutch Shell Company touted the ship's arrival in Rotterdam. Friends, and especially the young people, if the memories of the Shoah survivors teach us anything, it is that silence is evil's greatest co-conspirator. It's up to each of us, every one of us, to forcibly condemn any denial of the Holocaust. It is up to each of us to speak out against the celebration of Hitler as a quote-unquote great, strong leader, not one of history's most notorious mass murders. It's up to each of us to combat not only anti-Semitism, but racism, bigotry, and intolerance in all of its forms, here and around the world. To speak out against rhetoric that threatens the existence of the Jewish homeland the State of Israel. Holocaust survivor Pinchas Gutter, who has long shared his harrowing story of survivor with young people, he said, for the purpose of improving humanity, drop by drop. The opening of the Simon Wiesenthal Center's Courage to Remember at this important university, Thailand's flagship institution of higher learning, is particularly appropriate because it was here where a student painted Hitler large as a superhero. Your presence here today signals that you are part of the global struggle to overcome evil and to instill tolerance and mutual respect, one drop at a time, one person at a time. Thank you.